Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Sadiq Khan has to be the worst mayor of London we have ever seen. We're in the middle of a pandemic, with knife crime seemingly only going down because we are in said pandemic. We had mass protests last summer due to George Floyd dying thousands of miles away in another country with completely different problems with the police. This movement said we were white supremacist and were complaining about some statues that stopped some people that would make lives a lot worse for these people who are advocates for black rights, whatever the hell that means. So naturally, Sadiq Khan doesn't try and do anything extra for the pandemic. He doesn't try and do anything extra for this knife crime that is still going about. What Sadiq Khan does is this. Sadiq Khan unveils London Statue Review Panel branded unelected activists. Historians have warned that the body announced after Black Lives Matter protests will have a biased view of British history. Imagine my shock. Now it'd be interesting to see what this panel can actually do, because I do believe Parliament is putting in new laws specifically to stop the removal of statues, especially by unelected mobs. Now, this isn't a mob, this does have the backing of the Mayor of London, who, why does he keep getting voted back in? Well, I won't get into that. But I will say I wouldn't be surprised if they say pretty much every statue in London needs to go and be replaced with some gay person of colour in a wheelchair. Because, of course, Churchill stopping the Nazis from taking over the rest of Europe and, more importantly, the UK, of course he doesn't deserve a statue for that. He was a racist. Allegedly through a very biased view of history, but there we go. So we may as well have a look at exactly what this article says. A Star Wars actor and decolonising campaigners will lead Sadiq Khan's task force of unelected activists launched to review London landmarks. Unfortunately, I don't think that Star Wars actor is Gina Carano, because she is fairly based from what I can tell recently. I will do a video on that soon though, don't worry. The Mayor of London announced the Commission for Diversity in the Public Realm to address statues and street names from a bygone era, following Black Lives Matter protesters, and has now unveiled its members. Black Lives Matter have 2 protests in London, and all of a sudden we need to rename every street and get rid of every statue. I know it's a cliche, but it is very 1984. The panel of 15 include campaigners for decolonised art, diversity consultants, activists, and an academic who has argued the UK is the common denominator in atrocities across the world. Yes, the UK is obviously to blame for the biggest atrocities seen across the world, such as the Holocaust. Oh wait, that was Germany. Okay, the Great Leap Forward in China. Oh no, it was Chinese, sorry. Gulags. Oh, Russian. Yes, some of these terrible tragedies, all inspired by the UK. The worst we had were Boer camps, which, yes, they were bad. Everyone agrees. But Britain got rid of them, unlike the other countries who made them even worse. Riz Ahmed, Star Wars actor and vocal critic of Boris Johnson, has also been added to the group, which mayoral candidate Sean Bailey has labelled unelected activists. Yes, I believe he played one of the unforgettable characters from the great Star Wars movie Rogue One. The panel is intended to commission and review landmarks, but critics have claimed omitting conservative opinions and expert historians on Imperial Britain in favour of politically minded appointees will result in a biased outcome. Yeah, wow, you make an echo chamber, you get biases, who would have thunk that? Oxford's Professor Nigel Bigger warned the historical assumptions of the decolonisation movement are very largely wrong, and as I've gone through on this channel, he's correct when he says that, because in Leicester, for their English curriculum, they removed medieval English literature, which is retarded. The decolonisation of public statuary therefore amounts to the public triumph of a false historical narrative, to say that the truth of the narrative that prevails in public does not matter, and to compose a panel without any politically conservative historians is both illiberal and lets the false decolonisation assumptions go unchallenged. Yeah, and I completely agree, and guess what? Sadiq Khan thinks that's a good thing. Because really, I have made this argument before, and I do stand by it. Decolonisation doesn't mean decolonisation. It means colonisation of England. And Sadiq Khan's main voter base isn't the native English of London, most of whom have left, because now we have colonies, basically, within London. You look at Tower Hamlet, it is basically Bangladesh. And guess who they all vote for? They all vote for Labour candidates. All their Labour candidates are Bangladeshis who have moved there or are second-generation immigrants. So obviously they vote for the diverse Labour candidate for the mayoral elections. And there are many such cases like this. You just look at the demographics of each London borough. Barely any of them are actually majority white British, which, Enoch Powell did warn us of, but oh no, can't talk about him. He was a racist. So since colonisation of London appears to have been a success, at least in the eyes of Labour, they now have to push to get the historical British culture and statues out of there. If this doesn't scream we are taking over your capital city, I don't know what does. Honestly, this is ridiculous, and I can see Sadiq Khan just completely ignoring all of these criticisms. And they are well-founded criticisms, as we can see here. Panelist Lynette Naboza has claimed that the UK's racism that birthed slavery and colonialism, and Adria Emelif has called for a decolonised art world free from endemic racism. I don't know what the hell that last bit means at all. But again, the UK's racism birthed slavery? No, slavery was already in Africa. In fact, when the UK went over, when the British Empire went over and started trading in the slave trade, we actually told the African chiefs who were enslaving other tribesmen, we had to say to them, please stop beating these slaves, we won't pay you as much money for them. So we actually ironically made the lives of slaves a little bit better for a few hundred years. And then guess what? Oh, we went into debt for about 200 years to end slavery in West Africa and across the Atlantic. It was the UK that did that. Was it the UK's racism that saved them? Oh no, it's probably Africans that did it. Anyway, their commission colleague, Toyin Abetu, famously interrupted the Queen's speech during a commemoration of abolition in 2007 and has supported the removal of slaver Robert Jeffrey's statue from the Museum of the Home. Of course she has. In fact, there is actually a video of her interrupting the Queen, and I'm going to play it now.
As he approached, the Queen looked up. He stopped at the bottom of the steps, at the top of which the Queen was seated.
Let go of me! You said you were let go of me! Let go of me!
The service came to a halt. The congregation watched as, still standing a few yards from the Queen, the protester Toyin Agbeto demanded that Britain issue a formal apology for its part in the slave trade.
The word sorry is so hard to say, and you, the Queen, can you let us go? I'll punch you out.
Yes, a very sane and sensible activist there, shouting that he will punch security, shouting at the Queen for having absolutely nothing to do with slavery, since Britain has not been involved in the slave trade since 1803. Well, I say not involved, sorry. After 1803, we're involved in abolishing it and making it impossible for any empire to continue in the Atlantic, and demanding that the UK offer a formal apology to people that have never been enslaved by the UK. Yeah. Again, totally sane person who I would definitely have on a panel to review statues of Britain. I also realised before that video, I thought he had a girl's name. All I can do is apologise and laugh about it. Anyway, naturally, this article goes on. Other appointees include diversity consultant David Bryan, Decolonising Arts Institute contributor Zoe Whiteley, and House of St Barnabas engagement director Gillian Jackson, who has worked to address the members' club's colonial past. Oh, for God's sake. There are concerns that, aside from former National Portrait Gallery director Sandy Nair, the panel lacks historians able to address Britain's contested history. Yeah, but what they don't lack is leftist ideologues who want to completely erase Britain's past and make every white person in Britain feel they are responsible for the enslavement and the terrible history of black people in Britain, even though in reality it's really not that bad, especially compared to other countries. Again, Britain is way ahead of its time addressing anti-racism. Historian Dr. Zarir Mazani warned against a conspicuous absence of either British or imperial historians who might put our statues in context. Yeah, you don't realise, they don't want context. They just want our historical statues out of there because it represents everything they hate. They hate Britain. They don't want anyone giving any pro-British context to history because they hate that and they would rather be ignorant of it. And finally, to finish off, Cambridge historian Professor Robert Toombs added, "It will be necessary to keep a very close eye on what this commission does." Yes, I agree, because I wouldn't be surprised if Churchill is gone in 5 years. London, as our capital city, belongs to the whole of the United Kingdom, not just the mayor and his appointees. Completely agree. And if Millwall fans are anything to go off, anything Black Lives Matter does and takes over is not very popular. Mayor Khan said, "For far too long, too many Londoners have felt unrepresented by the statues." Street names and building names all around them. I can't believe it. And it's important that we do what we can to ensure our rich and diverse history, again, just complete gaslighting, we do have a rich history, diverse, only really since World War II, and even then, not really until after Tony Blair came in. And can you really call the last 30 years like history? Not really. So we can ensure that the rich and diverse history is celebrated and properly commemorated in our city. No, fuck off. The last 30 years should not take over the last, God, I'm going to go far to say 2,000 years. Because there really are Roman ruins all around as well. Like, there's Roman influence. London is literally named after the Latin name Londinium. We really can't get away from that. Is that okay? Is it okay to have the Roman history? You know, they were Italian. Italians aren't white. But it really does just show the lengths that Sadiq Khan will go to have his way and try and appease the absolute radical leftists that he has in his party. Momentum will love this. Momentum absolutely hate Britain, despite how much they will gaslight us on our history. And it seems that the only way to get rid of this is to vote for someone like David Curtin as Mayor of London. But I don't know how popular he will be, given that, well, alright, he's not white, that'll help in the first place, since apparently that matters for people voting now, at least on the left. But also he is staunchly pro-British, and it does seem like you have to vote for an anti-British mayor in London these days. And people ask, why is John Cleese said that London isn't an English city? Yeah, I can't think why. That the mayor's only trying to get rid of our history and culture there. So we've just gone through the Telegraph article, which is generally a centre-right paper in the UK. We now move on to The Guardian, which is a leftist paper, even though leftists keep claiming that they hate it. Now they keep going back to it, so I'm not having that. London's new diversity commission, not about removing statues. I'm already going to call bullshit on that. Sadiq Khan's landmark panel aims to inspire all parts of society and better reflect the capital's diverse population. See, what he actually said was history, not the diverse population it has today. So, nice one, Guardian. You're already gaslighting what he said. Let's see if that continues. Let's see. That's obviously going to continue in the article. London's Commission on Diversity in the Public Realm is not about tearing statues down, but addressing the dearth of monuments to people of colour and instilling hope in youngest member has said. Okay, I don't care what the youngest member has said. What are the rest of them saying? The rest of them all want decolonization of statues of native people of Britain. How can it be colonization and how can you be decolonizing if you are getting rid of statues of the native British people? You're out of your mind. You are actually out of your mind. So this article has obviously similar information to the Telegraph one, but it goes into more details on what exactly some of its panellists have said. So Emma Leafy has said the toppling of Edward Colston in Bristol marked a turning point, especially after the artist Mark Quinn put up a sculpture of a black woman on the empty plinth, and that reinvigorated the idea that public art should mean something. It was there literally for about 12 hours. It clearly wasn't wanted there. No one actually said keep it up. I don't even think Mark Quinn and the woman who the statue was of actually said to keep it there. Nobody wanted it there, so don't give me that shit. I saw little black girls looking at that statue, and it made me wonder if I saw that when I was younger, how it would have inspired me. No, it was there. It was taken down at 6 in the morning and put up at like 6 at night or something during a pandemic. Don't give me that shit that you saw little black girls looking at the statue. About 5 people saw that statue. I've seen the fucking time lapse. Don't give me that shit. Emily, who studied at the Courtauld Institute of Art, remembers being one of the only black students there. Throughout my work and life as a curator, writer and art historian, but also a young black woman, I've often been in the rooms that aren't very diverse. Well, that's what you get for coming and working and living in a majority white country, you idiot. Honestly, I don't know any white person that has gone over to Africa and been like, you know what, I was the only white person in the room, and I think that's terrible. No one has said that Why do they get away with saying it? It made me wonder if there was more public artwork that properly reflected London and all its hodgepodge of cultures, perspectives and ideas, how different London might be. No, it should be instilled into these people that they are in a British city and should act as such. It's not that London should adapt to them, it's that they should adapt to London. London is a place on a map that has a large history and a rather, there's a through line of that history, and it seems to be that when we get to now, for some reason, now we have to cut it off there and it's got a new one. No, I'm not having that revolution. That revolution can bite me. How does what we see every day, the statues we walk past, the images that pervade our space, affect how we live our lives, she added. Well, apparently it makes you hate. And honestly, if you live in a place that makes you hate it, maybe you should fuck off. Move somewhere else. Move somewhere you actually want to live. You stop enforcing your own fucking sensibilities on our capital city. It is alienating the population that it is supposed to represent. And according to your own fucking logic, that is a terrible evil. But you don't care because you have no standards. All you want is power, and to use that power arbitrarily, I don't know, maybe it gets you off, maybe it makes you feel good, maybe you need a better hobby than to go around counting the white people you see. God, these people get me angry. Naturally, she goes on to say more R-worded statements. I don't know why I'm saying R-worded, I said retarded a lot, but, YouTube, don't shut my channel down. She carries on, it's not just about taking statues down, it's about creating new commissions that will inspire generations, and that is what I'm most excited about, Gláeddyv said. Now, that is different to the title of the article. The article says that this commission is not about taking down statues, and what Gláeddyv has just said is that it's not just about taking down statues. So obviously part of this is about taking down statues. Thank you for fucking lying to me again, Guardian. You are the worst bunch of journalists I've ever had the pleasure to read. By the way, Laughing at the Guardian is back again on Saturday. She added, it's about what public art can mean and what it can do. It can inspire people, particularly the younger generation. You can argue that with good public art and a public realm that is more reflective of society, could that inspire change within that society? Why are statues about to inspire change? That's not what statues are for. They're for commemorating our heroes, our historical legacy, and to remind us exactly what our history is about, which is heroism, not revolutions. Can it inspire change in how we see people of colour, LGBT, I'm not reading that, communities, or people with disabilities? Oh my god. Churchill has a cane. Does he count as disabled for that? Of course he doesn't. He's white. After the year we've had, we need something that is inspiring, sparks debate and joy. Oh my god. That's all they scroll back to. That's all they go back to. Oh, well, if people don't like it, at least we started a debate. At least we're talking about something. No, I'm not having statues taken down just because you want a debate. This is art you see daily, and this affects your subliminal ways. If you walk past a statue of a black woman every day, it will obviously change the way you see black women. Maybe. You won't see them as othered. I don't see them as othered anyway. You'd see them as worthy of taking up space, being seen, and of being celebrated. This is ridiculous. I don't see Churchill there and go, white people should be celebrated. I see that and think, I should be more like Churchill. They've put up a statue of him because of the good work he did in the war. And I don't think, wow, all white people must be like that. You are an idiot, a racialist, and you should not have any position of power because you are clearly psychotic. It's the same for people with disabilities and those who are LGBTQ. Look, there are statues of Alan Turing in Manchester. There are statues of him. And guess what? People don't actually really know or care that he was gay. People don't care about that. People care because he helped us in World War II by breaking the Enigma code. He helped us generate the first rudimentary computers, which now the world runs on. That is why he is commemorated. Not because he is fucking gay and shagged other men. You are out of your mind and need some form of good education because you clearly didn't get it at whatever school you went to. I mean, honestly, if by this point you don't think it's about removing statues of white people that they hate, then I don't know what to tell you. And Guido Fawkes have a nice little summary of 4 of the panellists and what they've said in the past. So, Toyin Agbetu, he is the guy who heckled the Queen and Archbishop and yelled that she should be ashamed for our history of slavery, which again she had nothing to do with. Adria Emelife, who we have just talked a lot about, but there's even more to say about her, she said that She expressed delight at the guerrilla-style statue removal, and over the summer she said of the activism in Bristol that she described it as seeing the crane lift this up onto the plinth from our lookout point, the rush of adrenaline as this project is realised guerrilla style. So she loves the fact that Edward Colston, a man who has been cold dead in the ground for about 300 years, she's glad to see him go and be replaced by some random black woman. I mean, this is it. It is literally to her a fight between black and white people, which is racist and ridiculous. And then you got Riz Ahmed, who had called Mr. Johnson out as an out-and-out complete cunt, who is overtly racist. He also said he hates the word diversity because it does not equate with true representation. So the guy's an idiot actor. What more do you need to know? And finally, Lynette Neboza, who has claimed that white supremacy is uniquely British. She wrote, if you look back far enough, and not always that far, the UK seems to be the common denominator in atrocities across the world. No matter where you find examples of white supremacy, all roads lead back to my country of birth. It was racism that birthed slavery and colonialism. No, it wasn't. Colonialism, not really. We took over places that were fairly empty because tribesmen really didn't take up that much land. We say it is in the past, but our schools, colleges, universities, streets, museums, etc. have never stopped honouring the enforcers of our oppression. Well, no, that's probably because they made these places. And yes, everywhere has a dark history if you look for it. And you only focus on our dark history and not the fact that we made the modern world what it is. And believe it or not, the modern world is actually pretty good. So yeah, if you're British and not angered by it, I can only assume that you are one of those middle-class wanker Remainer types who put FBPE in their profile and think that Britain is the worst thing in the world and we need a European empire, ironically. A pan-European white empire is exactly what the Ramona types want. Very ironic that I should say that after reading everything about that, but apparently they're the people who are the least xenophobic and the least racist, despite the fact they want another empire, which all the wokies seem to hate. Anyway, that's a different issue, and I think I've got pissed off enough for one day here. So yeah, that's everything I had for you today. It's very black-pilling, but it's what we have to live with. So, as usual, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.